Hi, everybody. It's Gene Simmons, and you're not, and you're listening to the Potter Than Hell podcast with Steve, BC, BB, and Dylan. But you knew that, didn't you?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Potter Than Hell podcast. This is your last stop on the crazy train of hard rock and heavy metal. So sit back, buckle in, and hang on. Here we go.
Hello, Potter Than Hellions, and welcome back to the Potter Than Hell podcast. This is Stephen Michael from the Growin Up Rock Podcast. I'll be your host for this episode, and with me today on the show, I have
Steve,
and no one else.
That's it.
It's just the two of us, baby.
That's it. The two wild cards. The double S here.
So Wrighty, what's up? What's happening, baby?
Not a whole lot. Getting a lot of stuff done on the podcast here. A lot of cool episodes we have actually in the bag already, and a lot of cool stuff coming up. Work-wise has been kind of crazy busy. Still in recovery mode from the Kiss cruise and all the concerts we went to. We just saw Wasp and Armored Saint the other night. It was the show that John Bush returned back to. As we know, Jason McMaster was pinch singing for them like he did except for a couple shows when John was under the weather or whatever, but we got John Bush back, and then we saw Wasp after that, and we had a great time. So that was pretty much wrapping up my concerts for 2022. So it was a good show to end on.
I'm psyched because as we're recording this, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving. I don't know when this episode will be out. I'm sure sometime in the future, but I get my opportunity to see Armored Saint for the very first time and Wasp at the end of this week.
Oh, cool. What size venue are they? Are they playing like a theater down there or what?
They're playing theater here, and it's right around 1,200 seats.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we the show we just saw was sold out, and we've talked about the venue many times here, the Penn's Peak in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. Fantastic venue, and place was sold out. It was jammed. You couldn't even get in the merch line, like extended the whole length of the venue, and if you wanted to get ripped up with alcohol, you actually really even couldn't, because it was so crowded that by the time you left your spot and got a beer and came back, it'd be time to have another beer, and you'd be waiting that much longer in line. So it was a really busy show, but but it wasn't crazy where you couldn't breathe and it was bust to nuts or anything like that. But it was nice. It was really crowded, but like enough where you can have a little bit of elbow room when you're watching the show. But it was fun.
What does that place hold?
I think it holds like 1,800.
Okay.
Someone said 2,000, but I don't think it's that much. From what I understand, it's around 1,800 people. So there's a huge floor area, and then there's VIP sections on the top that a lot of shows they don't even open the upstairs, but this one, it was just jammed. It was good. It was a good crowd too.
That's awesome, man. Killer. So tell me, my friend, what are you listening to these days?
What am I listening to? Well, I've kind of been binging on some Wasp, as we just talked about. Got to see them, and they were fantastic. Listen to the old stuff. I actually put on the first two albums I listened to yesterday, and I was actually got about halfway through Crimson Idol today, and got that going. What else? Little Triumph, Little Rocka Rolla Machine, and Never Surrender I got a chance to listen to. And Steven, I don't know if you got a chance to check out. I know you checked out at least their first album, the band War Kings. They have a new album out called Morgana. It just came out like maybe 2 weeks ago, and I've been kind of binging on that. They're a newer band that I really like. They're like, I don't know. You could call like Amon Amarth like Viking metal. You could kind of call these guys like gladiator metal, because they're kind of dressed like gladiators and stuff. But the music is like great power metal. I know you guys aren't huge fans of that, but it's a real good album, and it's called the band is War Kings, and the album is called Morgana. So that's what I got going. How about you?
I have not checked out that War Kings record, but I am listening to, well, I'm doing a lot of prepping for the end of year, right? Our best of end of year type stuff. So I'm trying to sort through the tons of albums that came out this year and just sort of whittle that list down, because there's a lot of great stuff, as there is every year. For me, I'm listening to the new Queensryche a little bit. Also checking out the new Roses record that just came out, and Tuck Smith and the Restless Hearts as well. So that stuff, coupled with all the rest of the great stuff that came out this year, I'm just trying to fit it in wherever I can and seeing what sticks with me, because whatever sticks with me is pretty much what's going to end up being in my top 10 for the end of the year.
Yeah, that's about the same for me. I actually have my top 25 list in front of me, and I've been kind of looking at that and scrutinizing it, and that'll be a list that'll change probably the night that we record too. So, but like again, my friend, tons of great new music out this year that people are not taking advantage of.
Rock is not dead, that's for sure.
It is not. It's not even in a coma.
No. So tell me, and tell the listeners, why the hell am I hosting your show today, and why are we here today?
You are hosting because you're awesome, buddy. You're awesome, and I miss you from having you on the show. And you're one of my partners that I picked to do an album duo with, and I've been doing them. I've gone through from BC, BB, and Dylan, and Sonny did an episode with us as well. So I've been picking friends and my podcast guys to kind of to give a break to everybody else in the group. So this week it gives everybody a break besides myself. Dylan will edit as well, but gives BC and BB, and then it's actually something Dylan doesn't have to do and delve into. So what I've been doing is 2 albums of a band at each episode. So this week, as you guys can see from the thing, it's going to be the Judas Priest album discography that I'm doing with my buddy Steven here, and I'm looking forward to getting down the road with these albums.
Yeah, so like a lot of this stuff where we are fans of some of these bands that have been around for going on 40 and 50 years, which means that their earlier stuff started probably in the mid to late 70s. And for people like myself, you, even Sonny, we don't quite identify with the really, really early stuff, that early 70s stuff. Bands like Styx or Y&T or Journey or Whitesnake, or, for instance, Judas Priest, the Scorpions, another good example. This stuff is stuff where we came into the catalog somewhere around the early 80s, and by that time the bands kind of already knew who they were, and the recording quality had improved with technology. So you're getting a better product, in my opinion, personally. And I think that's what's going to occur here with these first two Judas Priest records that we cover. Today we're going to cover Rocka Rolla and Sad Wings of Destiny, the first 2 Judas Priest records. So we'll get into all that and go track by track and just kind of talk about the history of the band and these 2 records. But before we get too deep into all of that, Wrighty, tell me, what's your history with Judas Priest?
My history with Priest is they were a band that, once probably 1979, 1980 hit, when I branched away from Kiss, Van Halen was literally the first one that me and my buddies got into after and besides Kiss. And then from then on, it was more accessible to us. We had paper outs. We had some money of our own in our pockets. We were able to, go, and a lot of the albums we bought was because the album cover was cool. And I eventually got a job getting carts at a supermarket, and on my breaks I would go to where the magazines were. I would get a soda, and I would go through Circus and Hit Parader and all the rock magazines. And I remember seeing an article with Rob Halford, Judas Priest. It was a band I was aware of the name at the time. I think I had probably heard maybe like Living After Midnight or something like that. And Rob was talking about, driving the Harley on stage, and I was like, ooh, that's cool. I wasn't aware of that they were doing any of that stuff. And then he said that, maybe someday, and it stuck with me. I don't know why. He said maybe one day I'll drive like a snowplow on stage or something like that, he said. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty interesting. So literally like that week I went out and I was, found Judas Priest in the album section, and I saw the cover for Unleashed in the East. And I'm like, well, there it is right there. So I picked that up. So Unleashed was my first album. Opens up with Exciter, and it's been Priest ever since. And I think the next one I got was Screaming for Vengeance, had like just come out. So that was the second one I got, and then I went backwards, and we'll talk about the earlier albums going forward, but that's how I got into them.
Awesome. Well, I think I came into Judas Priest very late in the release of British Steel. So the album had been out a little while. I had, heard Living After Midnight. I'd heard Breaking the Law, that kind of thing. And my recollection was that literally Screaming for Vengeance came out not long after I had picked up the British Steel record and started listening to that. And I didn't know a ton about the band. I'd seen some articles in Hit Parade or Cream or Circus, whatever was the magazine at the time. But when I got Screaming for Vengeance, that literally, that was like the hand grenade that went off in my head. That record was so impactful to me. And I had the opportunity early on to see that tour, for that album. And that was kind of all she wrote for me. I became a fan from that point on. And although I haven't loved all aspects of Judas Priest throughout their entire career, there's much more good than there is bad for me. And they're a lot like Iron Maiden for me in that respect. They're probably, I'd have to put a list together, but I'm guessing that they're very close to being in my top 10, if they're not in my top 10 of all time bands, just because of the impact that they had when I was growing up and going to high school and sharing music with my friends. And it was literally, I want to say that it was the second concert I ever went to. If you know me and you're a listener of our show, the Growin Up Rock Podcast, Van Halen on the Diver Down tour was my first real concert that I got to attend. Well, Judas Priest on the Screaming for Vengeance tour was my second real concert that I got to attend. A friend of mine's mom took us to the concert and dropped us off. And I think I remember the opening act being Great White on that first record that they released, when they were a heavy metal band as opposed to a blues band. So I'm pretty sure that was the opening act for the show that I saw.
That's great. And I'm kind of similar too with the impact that Screaming for Vengeance had on me. And you mentioned that Maiden and Priest could be in your top 10. Maiden is in my top 5 bands, and Priest is absolutely in my top 10. And you are absolutely correct that not everything is great. Anyone that says everything is great are fucking clueless, I think. Everyone's got their own opinions, but you can't like everything. But you were correct, I think, that there is way more good than bad in Priest and Maiden too. And it's just amazing the trajectory that both bands are at now, that Maiden is so much more prevalent and selling out, like going crazy with selling out arenas and stuff like that. And Priest is, and they're kind of struggling. The show we saw on the tour like a month ago was just kind of not well attended. It was maybe 2/3 full in an arena. We were happy to see it. You don't really know, because we were 4th row, so you don't really notice it as much. But people, friends of ours that were back further, said there were a lot of empty seats. And but the way they played, you never would have been able to tell. So I've just been enjoying Priest throughout the years. And actually, the reason that we're doing Priest with you is because we did that Judas Priest Deep Track episode maybe 2 years ago, and you and I were going to do Nostradamus. So this gives us that opportunity to do that. And I think when we do that, that's just going to have to be a standalone episode. I don't think we'll be able to fit another album in with that one. I think when we do Nostradamus, that will solidify just one show. So
I think that episode will go pretty quickly. It sucks.
Okay, first track bad. Okay, second track bad. But sometimes it's just as fun talking about things that suck and why they suck, rather than if something's good and why it's good.
Well, here's an interesting thing to think about. So, because we talk about Maiden and Priest in the same breath, because really they are sort of, they're two very similar bands, both huge British heavy metal bands. Priest came before Maiden, much before Maiden, but still sort of similar in that way. But Maiden is so much huger than Priest at this point, because you talked about the attendance at your show. I saw Priest twice in the last probably 5 years. Once was at an amphitheater, and they failed to even sell half of it. And once was in a theater that had a capacity of 5,000 people, and I guarantee you that there weren't more than 3,000 people there for that, for Judas Priest and Uriah Heep last year. So, not last year, but on the Firepower tour.
Yeah, Uriah Heep didn't help it at all, I think.
No, but that's just interesting. So they're very much struggling, at least here in the United States, with attendance. Yep. And yet, earlier today, I watched them accept their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So, it'll be interesting to see if that title carries any weight and helps with their attendance, because it could. It could very much help their attendance when you're saying, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Judas Priest, right?
Yeah. Hey, and Paul Stanley, he was very against them, and then now every time they play, we're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, and that's his ego talking, but I hope that with Priest being in the Hall of Fame does help them out. And they did it correctly. They did it properly, I think. They got the guys that, they didn't have Ripper Owens there, but they had, KK came back and played. They had Les Binks played. I think they did it right. Glenn Tipton came back to do the medley that they did. I was very, I don't know if you want to call it, I was very proud of them that they put aside whatever, differences or whatever they had with KK and everything, and invited him to play with them for that induction. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I agree as well. All right, so let's get started with this.
Let's do it.
First up, we have the debut Rocka Rolla. And with these first two albums, there are going to be little kind of weird things going on. We'll talk about that a little bit. There's some differences in U.S. releases, first pressings. We won't get too deep into it because I just don't have the capacity for all this little innuendo type things that are happening. But we'll talk about it a little bit. So with Rocka Rolla, released September 6th of 1974, recorded from June to July of 1974. It was recorded at Trident and Olympic Studios in London, England. Length of the record's 38 minutes and 49 seconds. The label is Gull Records, and the producer is Roger Bain. I had to look this guy up because I didn't know who he was. But essentially, Roger Bain made his name by producing the first 3 Black Sabbath records. So Paranoid, Black Sabbath, Masters of Reality, those are all Roger Bain produced records. He also produced a new wave of British heavy metal band called Budgie, which they're pretty influential if you talk to bands like Metallica, right?
Yep.
So that's where this guy came from. The people that recorded on this record was Rob, Glenn, KK, Ian, and a drummer named John Hinch. And this is the only album to feature John Hinch. All right. So there's two album covers for this record. At least there's two that I've seen. There's one that just basically has a Coca-Cola looking cap, soda cap on it, and it says Rocka Rolla. And then there's this other album cover, which I think is the original album cover, that has like, I don't know, some creature with missiles and wings and a guitar. You know what I'm talking about here?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
All right. So which of these album covers first do you have, or do you even have this record?
I have the both of them on vinyl. I want to say I think the bottle cap one is the original one, because I think they put out a they reissued it, and I think that cover is the reissue cover, because then they put out like a compilation called Hero, and it's like that same kind of artwork, as I'm sure it's probably the same artist. So I think that was for the remake of it. But I had both, because when I picked up Rocka Rolla, after Unleashing the East and Screaming for Vengeance, and when I put this on, I'm like, what? Well, we'll talk about that. But that was the album cover that I got originally, and then they reissued it again, and like the idiot vinyl person I am anymore, I picked that up as well. So I have both versions of it.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't add, kind of, this is the first go around with this album series. And if you listen to this show and you're a listener of the Growin Up Rock Podcast, I don't know that I really need to tell you who Judas Priest is. I would imagine the majority of people know, but just real quick, Judas Priest, English metal band, formed in 74, or actually formed in 1970 by Ian Hill, the bass player, and KK Downing, one of the original guitar players. Although there is dispute on some of those things as to who formed the band. But I thought I'd throw that in there before we get too much further into it,
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start with the tracks on this thing. And as we get into this, it'll become apparent what our thoughts are on this first record. So the record kicks off with a song called One for the Road, written by Rob Halford and KK Downing. What's your thoughts on the way this album kicks off?
Well, I always look at it now, and I actually thought about it when I dropped the needle on this the first time. I was like, this is Judas Priest. This is the same band that did Screaming for Vengeance and Another Thing Coming and Exciter. Like, it's a slow riff and the drums kind of fade in. It's got like a slinky feel to it. The chorus is okay, but my main thing about this is, like, whose idea was this to have this song introduce the band? Like, this is, you know what I mean? You want to, put something, if you're a rock band, you want like a rockin' song to start. This is a terrible opening song for an album, especially for a band's first album, I think. I like the production on the album right off the bat. I think the production's pretty good. This is, I don't know, it's like 3 minutes and some. This song feels like a freaking 7-minute song. It just, I was like, oh, like,
Okay.
Feels like it went on forever.
Okay, so let's try and get in the headspace of the band at this point in time, right? I already told you their producer had produced the first 3 Black Sabbath records. This band is also from Birmingham, England. They came out of the same place that Black Sabbath did. They're just coming out a few years later. And from my understanding, even when they chose their name Judas Priest, they were kind of, I don't want to say emulating Black Sabbath, but they were trying to get on that same path as Black Sabbath.
Right.
They were trying to get in the same
kind of
backyard.
Like name association type thing.
Correct. So I could see where a song like One for the Road is sort of, it's Black Sabbath has a lot of sludgy kind of mid-tempo driving, beating stuff. And One for the Road, to me, sort of fits that description, don't you think?
Yeah, a little bit, but let me tell you, One for the Road is no Black Sabbath.
Well, no, it's not. But as this record goes, it's one of the better songs on this record.
That's true as well.
All right, so we go from there to Rocka Rolla, and they still play Rocka Rolla every once in a while to this day. And in fact, I think they played it on this last set of dates that they did. But written by Rob Halford, KK Downing, and Glenn Tipton. And this song is probably, I mean, I don't love the riff, but I question whether songs like One for the Road and Rocka Rolla would be better if we had heard them, let's say, in 1984 with better recording. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and maybe a little, kick in the ass too would have helped.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When you record in 1983 versus 1970, whatever, you're gonna get a little bit more quote unquote kick in the ass, right?
Yeah, just from a production standpoint alone.
All right. Yeah, definitely. So I don't mind Rocka Rolla. I don't even mind One for the Road. Are they my favorite Priest songs? No, but at least I kind of see that this is a rock band. For me, anyway, that's what I get out of it. And then we get into this, it's individual songs, but it's also a suite of songs, so to speak, that kind of they've been presented in two different ways. It's a song called Winter, Deep Freeze, Winter Retreat, and Cheater. And individually, that's the songs, but they also kind of tie together. This is just brutal. This is Steve. This is this British progressive rock in the 70s, psychedelic shit. I mean, do you like this at all? This whole thing?
It's very. If you listen to the first couple Queen albums, it's very Queen-like with how they have done stuff early in their career also. Because I know Rob Halford was a big fan of Queen when they were getting going too. There's parts of it that I like. I think Winter Retreat is actually before that Winter, there's some heavy parts in that, and I actually have the times broken down too. Winter is like 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Deep Freeze is just this weird squealing guitar solo thing that is a total waste of fucking tape. That goes from like 3:04 to 5 minutes. Winter Retreat is a soft, ballady, Pink Floyd-ish type thing, and it literally like slows down to like a fucking stop, and then you get Cheater. I think Cheater is great. This is probably the one song on the album that I would love to see them play live now, and it's only like a 3-minute song once you get it away from all that other shit above it. It's good. I like it. I think if you heard this now with like distorted guitars and stuff, I think it would rock pretty good. But as it's like a 9-minute and 30-second chunk of if you want to call it one song or a suite, as you said, is probably definitely a better way to talk about it. But like you could shit can at least half of this and have at least a decent song or song and a half.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. Like we said, with this first record, Priest is really trying to discover, like a lot of bands, who the hell they are. And they're influenced by a lot of different things, Queen being one of them, because at this point, Queen's already been out. And a lot of bands, here's the thing. I love Queen. I really do. And they have all these different moods and all these different flavors on their albums, and it works, and I like it. When these other bands, and there's more than just Priest, but these other bands try to be who they are, but then do all these other things because they feel like they should be able to do it, I don't like it. I like a band to be what I fell in love with. And so if you're a metal band, I don't want you doing operatic show tunes.
No, absolutely not.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But Winter was written by the original singer, Al Atkins, KK Downing, Ian Hill. Deep Freeze was written by KK. Winter Retreat written by Halford and KK, and Cheater written by Halford and KK. So it's just, they're discovering who they are and they don't know at this point. And the producer doesn't really seem to be guiding them. They certainly weren't carrying the flag for metal at this point. Of course, nobody even knew what heavy metal was at this point. It wasn't a defined thing. Whereas Sabbath, even though Sabbath has ventured off and done some psychedelic stuff within their records, there's no doubt about it. But Sabbath has always been kind of a heavy band, more or less, within their records. And that's not the case, at least on some of these Judas Priest records. So that's side one. Flip it over, side two. Never Satisfied, written by Al Atkins, the original singer, and KK Downing. I dig this tune. This is probably, to be honest, this and Rocka Rolla are probably my two favorite songs on this record. You like Never Satisfied?
Yeah, this is definitely a Priest classic. Armored Saint does a great version of it on their Nod to the Old School album. And this was one that when Rob Halford was doing the Halford Band, when they would play, and they would bust this song out as well, and it comes across great live. This is one that you get a glimpse of what these guys were going to be in the future. I think this is one of those kind of like crystal ball kind of songs that kind of gives you a hint of what's going to be down the road. And after listening to the first part, there's hope for this band after all. I think they may make something of themselves, my friend.
That's right. I get excited with Never Satisfied, and then I lose that excitement extremely quickly with the next song, Run of the Mill, because this song is freaking 8 minutes of brutal crap. Written by Rob Halford, KK Downing, and Glenn Tipton. Yuck.
Yeah, this one is this is a no for me, dog, for sure. The solo section in it is okay, but I mean, it's just like you're on the roller coaster now. You've been at the apex, and now you're down in the trough for this one. Like I'm dying for not dying to meet you, but dying for a fucking better song for the next one.
Yeah, so after I lived through 8 minutes and 34 seconds of Run of the Mill, which, as I said, was brutal, I get to this Dying to Meet You Hero thing, written by Rob Halford and KK Downing. It's 6 minutes, and it starts out pretty brutal, but at least it sort of gets okay a little bit towards the middle of the song and towards the end. And when I say okay, I mean okay at best, because it's not great either. What are your thoughts on this song?
Yeah, the Dying to Meet You part, brutal. It's just like clean strumming guitars. I don't want that from Judas Priest. Even I don't give a shit if it's 1974 or 2022. I don't want that from Priest. But it's like at 3:49 you get the hero part. More upbeat. And actually, this one Rob has some really fast lines in there, which I have no idea what the fuck he's singing. The solo there's like a guitar mini part like leading up to the solo. It is terrible. Just like the solo though for 1974 rips. In 1974 fashion. I would like to hear Priest do this, in a modern version, except for that stupid guitar mini part that is horrible. But, if you rated like 1 out of 5 for songs, this one would get maybe a 2, just because of that first part is just fucking terrible.
All right. So we're off to a great start with this second side. Never Satisfied gives hope to everybody that wants to be a future Judas Priest fan. And then we go nothing but downhill from there, in my personal opinion. And then we get to the end of this record with a song called Caviar and Meths. And it's an instrumental, which my question is why. And then I'm like, I wish it was meth because maybe I wouldn't have to listen to this song and it'd be much better. Caviar and Meth, 2 minutes of wasted space at the end of the record, leaving the first record, Rocka Rolla, in my personal opinion, very unforgettable. What's your thoughts, Righty?
Yeah, Caviars and Meth. Take out the T and the S, and you have meh. Is exactly what fucking describes this. Like, more clean guitars and like an instrument. It's boring, and it's a terrible ending one to an album that has some really tough things to get through in the first place. And this doesn't even end with a whimper. It ends with a fucking thud.
I listened to Rocka Rolla today, and that's the first thing I hear from Judas Priest. I'm never a Priest fan.
Right. And like I said, like thank God that I got in on them in the 80s,
Yeah.
and this wasn't, oh, hey, check out this new band. I'd be like, oh, they got like maybe 2 good songs in this album, and that would be it. And I literally because I have my original Rocka Rolla with the bottle cap one, and just to complete my set, I did purchase the other one, the redo of it with the I don't even know what color the vinyl is, but just to be a completist. But I literally played it once just to say that, hey, I'm not just collecting shit. I do listen to it, and I was like, why the fuck did I just listen to that?
Growing up in the 80s. There used to be a saying that said a new band's first album is always going to be their best album because they have their entire career to write their first album.
Not true.
Not true. May have been true in the 80s. There are some bands in the 80s that put out one great record, and that was it, right? And you always had the sophomore jinx where their second record was never as strong as their first. And that wasn't the case, at least in my personal opinion, with the bands that started in the 70s. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. And Priest is that prime example of that.
Yeah, no doubt at all in my mind, because it's brutal. This stuff is brutal. And yeah, it's just not good stuff. So that kind of concludes the overall Rocka Rolla, the debut from Judas Priest. Before we jump into our next record, Sad Wings of Destiny, here's a little hidden gem that sort of ties into this episode. Check out A Little Crazy from Rob Halford's Fight.
It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. I'm just a little crazy. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. I'm just a little crazy. Working me to get me all strung out. alright. It's alright, I'm just a little crazy. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright, I'm just a little crazy. Under my skin, into my bones. I feel insanity begin to make its home. Into my vision and through my mouth. Somebody's working me to get me all strung out. I said it's alright. It's alright. It's alright. I'm just a little crazy. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. I'm just a little crazy. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. I'm just a little crazy. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. I'm just a little crazy.
All right, so that's our hidden gem, A Little Crazy from the record Fight. That record's got some great stuff on it. The song Little Crazy is a little bit left of center from the rest of that record, but I like it. You like that too?
Yeah, the song is great, and it's weird because that there's a local band that we had around here, Harpo, and they used to play that live, and we'd like go, pun intended, we'd go crazy when they play that because like no one was playing that stuff. And Fight, I never got to see Fight, but I did get to see Halford, and he did play some of the Fight stuff. So great album though. I love that. Songs like Into the Pit, like friggin' just great heavy album, because that was when that came out, especially after that 2 album that Rob put out that was all this industrial whatever the hell that album was. This was just straight up like metal, great album. Fight, War of Words, great album. Little Crazy is a really good song.
Yeah, and I like the Halford solo record as well. That's a good solo record.
Yep.
That's right. So we'll share a couple of hidden gems of our own. One I'm going to share with you is a pretty recent record, but it's a heavy record, and it's a record by a band called Iron Allies, and the name of the record is Blood In, Blood Out. And the band consists of singer David Reese, who you may remember from Bangalore Choir and Accept, their one album that he did with them. And then also guitarist Herman Franks, who is recently played with Victory, but also was in Accept for a while as well. And it's a pretty good record, man. Just released it maybe a week or two ago. And if you haven't checked it out, Righty, this seems like it'd be something right up your alley. So check out Iron Allies, Blood In, Blood Out. What do you got for us?
Before I go on to mine, that Iron Allies, I literally have that in my iTunes library. I just have not gotten a chance to listen to that yet. And but I'm definitely looking forward to it, because the last couple albums that Herman Frank put out were freaking fantastic, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out. And my hidden gem this week, I was in a vinyl store, the record store that we have, maybe 45 minutes from us. My wife and I were out doing like a shopping day, so I stopped in the store. And I was going through their used records, so I came across this album, Pat Travers. The album's called Hot Shot, came out in 1984. And I was surprised when I was going through it and I saw it. I love Pat Travers. I was so glad I got to see him on Monsters of Rock Cruise. And so I grabbed this album. I didn't have it. I've been, if I see any albums of his that I don't have, I'll pick them up. And I was surprised the album was not even open. It was still sealed. I got it for like $5. And it's a real good album. It's got songs called Killer on there, Hot Shot, and there's a song called Tonight on there. And I literally turned my head when I was listening to it the other day. I honestly thought it was a Rick Springfield song. And but it's a real good, solid, just straightforward rock album from the early '80s. And Pat Travers, Hot Shot.
All right, so that's our hidden gems: Iron Allies, Blood In, Blood Out, and Pat Travers' Hot Shot LP from 1984. Now, let's jump into this second Judas Priest record, Sad Wings of Destiny, released March 23rd, 1976, recorded November through December of 75. Studio was Rockfield Studios in Wales, England. Length of the record is 39 minutes. Label is Gull Records again. Produced by Jeffrey Calvert, Max West, and Judas Priest. The people on the record are Rob, Glenn, KK, Ian, and Alan Moore. This is the only record with drummer Alan Moore. It seems like Judas Priest is stuck with Spinal Tap drummers. What do you think there, Righty?
I think so too. We don't know. We don't think that they were actually had a demise, but like getting, stuff dropped on you while you're playing and stuff like that. But they do seem to go through drummers, and I think that that will continue throughout the years, which
They've had a lot of drummers.
They have, absolutely. And but we're in good shape now with Scott Travers. That's all I got to say.
Well, they got the young guy, and he's been there and he's been solid, and he's an incredible drummer.
Yeah, he's been there since 1990.
Yeah, he took over for Dave Holland.
Dave
right?
Holland, yep. Well, he actually, I think he took over for the drum machine that took over for Dave Holland.
Taking over for the drum machine that took over for the drummer. All right, fair enough. So this album cover, I like this album cover. This album cover is sort of iconic, man. It's a pretty cool album cover. Goes along with the title of the record. I dig it. What's your thoughts on this album cover?
I like it. It definitely fits, I think. And they re-released that one as well, and the cover's embossed. It's really, really nice. It's got the angel, the like he's a sad angel, Sad Wings of Destiny. I think it totally fits the album. It's the reddish cover, so you kind of like a hell type of feel for it as well. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it says heavy metal to me, right?
Yep,
you got the
absolutely.
flames all around the angel with the wings, and it's a cool record cover in my opinion. It's a nice piece of art, which back in these days, that's what album covers were meant to be, were nice pieces of art, correct?
Yep, and this one definitely is.
That's a fact. All right, so let's jump into the track by track. So this is where it gets a little bit weird. I personally have the copy of this record, which is from the complete album series that they released not too long ago. And the track listing on that is different. When they re-released it as part of this complete album series, they mixed up the tracks and essentially put side 2 as side 1 and side 1 as side 2. Which copy do you have?
The one that I went off of starts with Victim of Changes,
which is the original. So the original copy of this record started with Victim of Changes, The Ripper, Dreamer, Deceiver, and then side B was Prelude, which Prelude wasn't even on all the pressings. Do you have Prelude on your record?
Yeah, the album version that I have, it does have Prelude on there.
Okay. So just picking this back up, right? The reason I bring this up is because this is how, and this can change the way you feel about a record because, as I've said many, many times before, sequencing is important, especially back in these days when you listen to a complete album from start to finish. There were no playlists and stuff like that back in the 70s. So the original version was Victim of Changes, as I said, The Ripper, Dreamer, Deceiver, and then side 2 started with Prelude, Tyrant, Genocide, Epitaph, Island of Domination. My personal copy that I own is part of the complete album series that Judas Priest released not that long ago, where it was all the albums, all the studio albums in a bundle. But when they did that, they made Sad Wings of Destiny start off with side 2. So my copy of Sad Wings of Destiny is Prelude, Tyrant, Genocide, Epitaph, Island of Domination, and then over to, if I had a cassette, which it's a CD, but
yeah,
and then it goes to Victim of Changes, The Ripper, Dreamer, Deceiver, and Deceiver. I personally, my opinion is, well, actually, we'll get into that. So we're going to go off of what you have, Steve,
okay,
and what the original version is. And so the first song that you're going to hear off of Sad Wings of Destiny is Victim of Changes, which we all know is a Priest classic at this point, right? Written by Al Atkins, Glenn Tipton, Rob Halford, K.K. Downing. It's 7-minute song, but I mean, there are so many awesome moments within this song. And for the first time, to me, you kind of see where Priest is headed. And they've kind of, I guess, settled on where they're going. What are your thoughts about Victim of Changes?
I love it. I think it definitely deserves the classic status that it has. It's a combination of 2 songs that Priest had played, Whiskey Woman and then Red Light Lady, and I love it because it's, this is like the song I think that shows what these guys are gonna be, and I like the original too because you get the guitars fade in at the beginning with the dual guitars, and just the time changes, and she doesn't see me anymore, that slow down part, and you get the build back in. It's pretty much like, if you want to call it Priest's, I don't know, just their epic song. It's just it's a blueprint for metal bands coming down the road doing longer tunes, such as Iron Maiden, with all the different time changes and everything. I think it's fantastic. Although I used to hate, I love Glenn Tipton, but when he always did that solo in it, the din in it, like, I hated that. It just drove me crazy when they used to do that live, and I'm glad that they don't do that now. Even though we didn't get Victim of Changes on this tour, which I think they're giving it a break, but it's just one of them songs that like everyone just knows and loves from Priest. I think if you don't like Victim of Changes, I just think you just don't like Judas Priest at all. And I like I like both versions. I like the live version that you get on Unleashed in the East, and every other live album and compilation that they've had. But this song also has its place as well. The slower version, I don't mind it. It's a go-to once in a while for me as well.
I love it, and I think it's the song that establishes them as a twin guitar attack. Now you're going to get 2 guitars, and that's something that is going to be reckoned with going forward in this band. So from Victim of Changes, we go to another Priest staple / classic, and that is the 2-minute and 50-second song written by Glenn Tipton, The Ripper. Absolutely love this song. Iconic moment when they double up Rob's voice and he goes and hits that high note at the beginning. It's unbelievable. What's your thoughts on The Ripper?
Yeah, The Ripper's fantastic. They're the replacement singer for Rob Halford when he left. The nickname was Ripper, so he took it from this song. This version is fantastic. The version Unleashed in the East is great. Quick song, hit and run. If you listen to this version with your headphones on, there's a lot of little earworms in there that you don't get on the live version. It's got a great galloping during the solo, and I like it because you get a gong in there. I'm always a sucker for a good gong in a song, and it's got a great build in it too. Just a quick, good song and classic for those obvious reasons.
Yeah, so I'm excited at this point. If I get album number 2, because I want to give Judas Priest another chance, after a dismal beginning, then I hear Victim of Changes and The Ripper, and I'm in, baby. However, then I get to a song called Dreamer Deceiver by Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tippin, and Al Atkins. 5 minutes and 51 seconds. And all I could think of when I heard this song, are you a fan and familiar with the movie Animal House?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Okay. Well, you know the part where what's his name sitting on the stairs playing "I love my love." I gave my love a cherry with the acoustic guitar.
Yep.
And Belushi comes down the stairs and grabs the guitar and smashes it against the wall. Well, that's all I could think of with this song is "I gave my love a cherry."
That's awesome. I never even thought of that, but it fits absolutely perfect.
So this is left over because Halford is still into Queen. They're still in the, mid 70s. There's still a lot of psychedelic left, a lot of progressive, a lot of psychedelic. All this stuff is making its way into rock bands and has been a part of rock bands. There is no pure just heavy metal band. There's no such thing as just a pure heavy metal band at this point. These bands have all kinds of influences that are everything from prog rock to psychedelic rock to, show tunes, whatever. And so a lot of that is intertwined with not only Judas Priest albums, but a lot of these bands that we like that started their careers in the 70s. And Dreamer Deceiver is a perfect example of that. I mean, if you listen to a song like Dreamer Deceiver after a song like The Ripper, it sounds like two totally different bands. It doesn't even, there's no cohesiveness there at all, in my opinion. So it's not good. And that's my thought on that song. And I can't imagine that you feel any differently.
No, I don't. And you could not have said it better with the Animal House analogy. And I'm just going to leave that lay right where that is, right there.
All right, so then we go to close out side one of this record with a song called Deceiver. That's another thing. We got Dreamer Deceiver, and the next song's called Deceiver. Really? We couldn't come up with a better name? All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, quit confusing me. I'm old. This one written by Rob Halford, Glenn Tipton, and KK Downing. But this is a 2 minute and 40-second song that's much better. It's much better than Dreamer Deceiver. It's a rock tune. It's not a bad way to end side one. It's not too bad. I kind of was okay with this song. What's your thoughts on Deceiver?
Yeah, this was a good one for me, especially after the last song. It was absolutely torturous to listen to get through that. Good track. The bass tone is really good in it. You get some of the Halford screams in there too. I think it's a good way to end side one. And it kind of, hopefully a little bit, makes you forget about Dreamer Deceiver. You would rather Deceiver. So decent end to side one. And actually, if you get Dreamer Deceiver out of there, you have a good first side here.
Yeah, it's a little short, but Victim of Changes, and Victim of Change is almost an 8-minute song. So if you got rid of Dreamer Deceiver, or as I like to refer to it, Nightmare Deceiver,
true,
then it's not too bad. So we get to side two, and side two kicks off with the song Prelude. And this is just an instrumental track that's written by Glenn Tipton. It's 2 minutes. It's kind of pointless to me. I guess back in the 70s, it was fine. I don't mind intros. This one is just too long for me and just sort of, I don't know, it's sort of pointless. Are you a fan of Prelude?
No, Prelude blows, by the way. But like, why is there a piano instrumental even at this point on a Judas Priest album? It doesn't belong there. And you know my thoughts on intros to begin with, and this is one that is just, it's a waste. It is. I don't know. I just don't I don't get it. I mean, I know that they were, and also too with Dreamer Deceiver, they're probably trying to fill up tape to put out, a full, at least almost a 40-minute album. But I would rather them not waste the tape and just have a shorter album than have to just sit through this shit. Even just to review it for the show, it was tough.
All right, but here's the thing. The payoff is big because you go from Prelude to Tyrant, written by Rob Halford and Glenn Tipton. 4 minutes and 28 seconds of what ultimately, in my opinion, is the closest that you're going to hear to what Priest becomes. I absolutely love Tyrant. My record kicks off with Prelude and Tyrant. And for me personally, songs like Tyrant, the very first time I heard the next two songs that we're going to talk about, Tyrant and Genocide, were on the Unleashed in the East album. And the live recordings of those songs are what made me want to go back and get these records, because this is just a killer rockin' heavy metal hard rock song in 1976, 76, when this record came out. And that is awesome. I know you got to be a fan of Tyrant there, Steve-O.
Yeah, Tyrant is absolutely killer, and I'm with you as well. The first time I had heard this and Genocide was on Unleashed in the East, and this is just absolutely fantastic. I love Rob's. You kind of get this is the one where you get the snapshot. You get Rob Halford's. You get the higher singing. You get the awesome cadence that he has in a lot of the things. You get the dual. You get the back and forth soloing in this song as well. And even the production on this, you get a lot of panning in the headphones going back and forth as well. And in the final third of the song, it speeds back up for the dual solos at the end. Just a killer track, and it could be a perfect metal song for me.
Yeah, it's really, really strong, really good, and I absolutely love it. And then it just it stays even keel, and we go from Tyrant to Genocide, written by Rob Halford, Glenn Tipton, and KK Downing. And I love this as well. It's just a 1-2 punch, and you can tell already by this record that we've kind of gone on a little bit of a roller coaster ride, right? So the first side kicks off with a great 1-2 punch and Victim of Changes and Ripper, and then we get the nightmare in between of Dreamer Deceiver, and then we end on a okay note with Deceiver, and then we kind of start off with this, I don't know, instrumental that doesn't need to be there, but we get another great 1-2 punch with Tyrant and Genocide. You're a fan of Genocide, right?
Oh, Genocide's fantastic. They did that on this tour. We saw them a couple weeks ago, and BC and I are like, holy shit, Genocide. And I just, and this has for a metal song, it's got such a groove to it. Great lead fills in there. You get a slowdown. You get a little spoken word in there. We love the spoken word here on Hotter Than Hell. Tempo changes in there. The drums are great. I like the speed up of the vocals, and you get that Halford kind of back and forth in your ears and your headphones. Just another, this is absolutely just a killer track. 2 in a row here, boom, boom, and like I said before with talking about the other songs before, the ones that are on Unleashed in the East, I don't mind even the studio versions of them, because they're worthy also too of listening to as well.
And I would highly recommend to anybody that's just coming into Judas Priest and maybe is only familiar with the hits or the older stuff, that if they were interested in earlier Priest, I would tell you not to start by getting the whole records, but to pick up Unleashed in the East and start with that.
Absolutely.
Because that just gives you a whole new perspective for the earlier Priest, and it's so good. So remember that roller coaster I was talking about, where with Tyrant and Genocide, you're like up at the top of that crest and you're excited and you're happy and you've just gotten a 1-2 punch. Well, we get to Epitaph and that's like falling off the cliff into a brick wall, because if you're listening to this record and it has no labels on it and you're like, holy shit, Tyrant really rocking, Genocide, great. When Epitaph comes on, you're like, did somebody switch the albums? Did somebody play a joke? Written by Glenn Tipton. Though my notes on this, those vocals at the beginning, what the fuck? Did somebody switch records? I mean, this Epitaph is just like, it's a total Queen song. It's a total, it's not a ripoff because it doesn't sound like any Queen song, but it's completely influenced by Queen, in my opinion. You can't possibly like Epitaph.
No. My notes exactly say more piano shit that doesn't belong on this album. Brutal, absolutely fucking terrible. Delete it. And then I also wrote down, maybe the only person that could save this song would be maybe Billy Joel. So we are into Billy Joel territory here, which I have nothing against Billy Joel, but Billy Joel does not belong on a Priest album, and a Priest does not belong on a Billy Joel album. So I think that we're into that territory. It seems like they just can't keep up the pace on an album. They, you know what I mean? Killer track, total shit. Killer track, total, you know what I mean? Like, there's no, just continuity of rocking songs in a row. There's always something that, as soon as you're like rocking and for a good song, rocking for the next song, and then boom, you get a punch right in the balls. Like, I'm glad that they, eventually got away from this kind of stuff after these first 2 albums, but like, brutal. Like, I don't even know why that's on there. Did Glenn want just one of his songs solely on this album? I don't know, but it's not good at all.
I mean, this is not the case of a rock band doing a power ballad.
No.
Where 3/5 of the record is all rock and shit, and then they got a couple of power ballads. This is more a case of, hey, we want to write a rock song, but we also want to be able to write a show tune. We want to be able to write a show tune, but we also want to write a classical piece. It's just there. It's all over the place. And if you strip it down, there's more rock than there is anything else. So they want to be a rock band. They talked about the influence of Black Sabbath and how they kind of want it to follow suit. But then they have these things like Epitaph and Prelude and Dreamer Deceiver, where it's like not even the same band. And if it wasn't labeled, there's no way you would listen to Tyrant and then listen to Epitaph and go, it's the same band. There's
Absolutely.
no way.
No way. Absolutely. Yeah. You go from metal to lounge music in a heartbeat.
It's awful. So then we go to close out the record, and we get to a song called Island of Domination, written by Glenn Tipton, Rob Halford, KK Downing. Look, as it goes, this isn't a bad ending to a rock record. It's a decent song. It's a rocking song. It's not, to me, it's not as good as Tyrant or Genocide, but it's not bad either. What are your thoughts on ending this with Island of Domination?
Yeah, not a bad ending. This one for me, like guitar tone wise, in the beginning definitely has a Queen feel for me, but I don't mind this one. It's the song kind of gets moving, as it goes. I don't mind it. There's some really ripping guitar fills in there. There's like a galloping during the verses and that. It's not and you were right, it's not a bad ending to the album, and I agree with what you said earlier, maybe at the beginning of this album. Sequencing is extremely important, I think, in albums. I know some people don't agree with that, but in this day and age, maybe not, because people are doing playlists and going here and there, but like as sitting down listening to albums, I think, especially then when it was the only medium you had to listen to, sequencing was extremely important, and to me it still is. But good ending track for me on this one. And this album was a lot easier on the ears than Rocka Rolla.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, let's talk about our final thoughts on these two records, right? We said it from the beginning. It's a band trying to discover who they want to be down the road. It's a band that is influenced by all kinds of things, and most musicians are influenced by a lot of different things. They like a lot of different things. The problem is that they have to kind of corral all of that into one cohesive sound, and that's the sound you're known for, right? I mean, that's what gives us the opportunity to become fans. We're not a fan of, Judas Priest because they're great at country music. We're a fan of Judas Priest because they're a heavy metal, hard rocking band, and that's what they do. It's the same, right? It's the same thing as Metallica putting out this record with what's his name, the Lulu record.
Lou Reed.
Metallica fans didn't like that record because Metallica fans liked Metallica because of who they were, not this thing that they want to venture off and be. And so it's just, it's early 70s. Influential prog rock and show tunes and other things that are mixed in, and you can definitely, in my opinion, see the splashes of who they want to be and who they're going to become, but you got to kind of wade through that. Much less with Sad Wings of Destiny than with Rocka Rolla, but you still got to do it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you touched on a lot of points. I'm not going to go over everything again, but you do get the seeds of what's to come, even on both albums. Not so much on Rocka Rolla, but definitely more on Sad Wings of Destiny. And like you were absolutely correct. If you are someone just getting into Priest, do not go to Rocka Rolla first. Please get Unleashed in the East. It will give you a taste of what you're getting now and what the band became after these first couple albums. And Sad Wings of Destiny, they're getting their feet under them. They still got a little bit of that Queenie lounge show tune kind of thing going on there for a couple tracks. Continuity wise, the albums, they're kind of up and down, but there's some good worthy stuff on both of these albums to listen to, and like I said, more so on Sad Wings of Destiny, but it's a good start for them, and we're only going to get progressively better as we go along.
Yeah, by the time we get to the next record, Sin After Sin, they will have pretty much settled on what they want to do, and we'll get into that when we get there. But these first two records are experimental from a young band, and that's okay, because where we're headed is much better territory. So yeah, that's a wrap on these first two Judas Priest records. Thanks to the Potter Than Hell podcast for letting me host and be a part of this series. Thanks to all the listeners for downloading and sharing the Potter Than Hell podcast from myself and Steve-O and the rest of the Potter Than Hell crew, which doesn't want to appear with me and Steve for some damn reason.
I can't blame
them. Take care of yourselves and be kind to each other, and we will talk to you all next time, and there will be a next time. See ya.